Well, Chris, thank you very much, and to the staff of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. Just want you to know that notwithstanding the fact that you spend a lot of time at Western, you have to worry, coaches, you aren't going to have to go down there and play them anytime soon. I bet you're glad to hear that 16th team wasn't Western. So it's a long way down there. Every trip they took was a long one. And just a little bit about him, the court's named after him, and it's funny, he spent a lot of time there. He played at college at Western. There's actually a rafter you could shoot over playing horse that he owned that shot. And so it's interesting they named the court after him because that meant an awful lot to him. That guy liked to coach. I don't think there's anything in the world he loved more than coaching. He started coaching when he was actually in high school. He coached in the Parochial League in suburban Chicago. And he said many times he actually liked practice more than the games. And he had these index cards that had his practice plan, and he'd get that out, and he was going to do as many of those as you could do well. Thank you very much to all of his players and supporters and everyone who came out here. I really appreciate it on behalf of Coach Drag and his family and grandkids. I think he's up there in heaven. My mom, he had a stormy relationship with the world and with life, but one of the stories that always illustrates, one of their friends was a coach and a woman, and the woman tells the coach, hey, it's either me or coaching. And he divorced her. And my mom said, well, that's a dumb thing to tell a basketball coach. And so, one thing about him is he was an equal opportunity coach. It didn't matter how pretty you looked. It was how hard you worked and whether you would play into a system. And it's interesting, over the years, he would take student athletes of the time from places like Cliff, New Mexico, and Magdalena, New Mexico, and mold them with players from places like East Chicago and Indianapolis. And if you were doing what he's want, he was your guy, and if not, he'd probably let you know about it and take you out of the game. And over the years, he also had a special relationship with his assistant coaches. And if you were really in his doghouse, his assistants, he'd take their keys away from them. It was, I don't know, it's like, give me your keys. That meant you were on double secret probation. And so as far as I know, every assistant got their keys back. But, when they get together and compare notes to this time, that's something that comes up a lot. And he really was an educator, and he really valued education. One of the things, they make a big deal about now is graduation rates and GPAs. At primarily Western, but, when he's down in other places, they really didn't make that big of a deal out of it because the guys that played for him for 3 or 4 years almost all graduated to the point where you did not need to keep a statistic. In addition, when he's at Western, there'd be kids that were in other sports or just not even part of programs that he knew was struggling, and he'd help them get student jobs or, give them a kick in the rear end when they needed it because he knew they weren't going to class. And so that was something that, despite his kind of a surly, rough demeanor, and he probably yelled once or twice at everyone he's ever known, he did have a heart of gold. And I'd like to think that there's a heaven, and if there is, they're probably up there playing basketball, and he probably has an assistant coach that he's taken the keys away from a time or two, but then gave them back. But at the end of the day, nobody wanted to win more than him, and it was infectious. And I mean that in the good sense of the word, and I mean that in the bad sense of the word. He wanted to win. And everybody around him, they better want to win too, or it was not going to be pleasant. And so his players would want to win, his wife would want him to win, his kids would want him to win, the administrators would want him to win, the radio guys who would sometimes want to go on trips with them would want him to win, because he was a lot nicer when they won. But at the end of the day, he was a good guy. He loved coaching, he loved his players, he loved competing in this league. And if any of you know any refs out there, just know that, he's probably yelled at a ref or two, but at the end of his life, he actually came clean that he actually liked a couple of them too. So thank you very much on behalf of his family, on behalf of all the guys that have played for him, all of his coaches, all the schools he was at. He really loved the sport, and it's really nice. Really appreciate the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference recognizing him in such a wonderful way. Thank you.